So, change is going to come again and again and again. We can fight it. And our opening keynote digs into the idea that the only constant in music is change, and that the real advantage comes from embracing it. Oder? Patrick Mushatsi-Kareba is one of the leading minds in music transformation in Germany, with expertise in Sony Music GSA and deep ties to the digital revolutions that reshape the industry. Okay, today, Patrick will share lessons learned from decades of reinvention of the mindset and the shifts needed to design the future of music, rather than simply reacting to it. So please welcome our keynote speaker, Patrick Mushatsi-Kareba.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome. So nice to see you all. Great. I was having a tea over there, and it was actually empty. Then I came back after 2 minutes, and you were all here. So that's really fantastic. So I will talk about change, as you can see on the presentation, and you may wonder why I use some kind of car thing on the first slide. Hopefully I can explain it, and it will be more logical to you after we end. So why do I think that I may be entitled a little bit to talk about change? So you can see over there a picture of actually 3 companies where I had the pleasure to work for. So first of all, it was in the early 2000s. I had the pleasure to join Deutsche Telekom, and they said to me, Patrick, we need a person who is a digital expert, or what at the time was considered a digital expert, basically a person who can surf in the internet, basically, and at the same time a person who has ties to the music industry. So before that, I was a music journalist, and I went to joined Deutsche Telekom, and they said, we need a music service. Can you help us and build a music service? I said, yeah, sure, why not? I basically, such a big company, most of all will be familiar with the company. So that was a very interesting time. I could work just as in a startup in a way, because on one hand, I was part of this major company, but at the same time, I was totally free because no one actually believed in the idea of music and the digital space, the internet in general, or not so many people. So they gave me basically a blank piece of paper, and they told me, Patrick, here you go. So until I joined Deutsche Telekom, I had never worked with lawyers when it comes to making deals with artists and companies. I had not worked with agencies when it comes to developing a logo, for instance. And all those areas were completely new to me. And even the name. I actually was in a cafe on an evening, and they said, I received a text saying, did you think about the name? And I said, okay, why not? It will be download music. Let's call it Musicload. Let's keep it simple. And on the day after, I went to the office, and actually so the name was not taken. I said, okay, let's go. Let's do Musicload. And I told them, I want this to be an own brand. And that actually became the first vertical of Deutsche Telekom. I was not familiar with the term vertical at the time, but I was like lucky in a way that people, they were saying, okay, just do it. And that became the first music download service of Deutsche Telekom. That was in 2002, 2003. So 1 year before iTunes launched in Europe. And after that, we had a good start in the business, at a very small level, but at that time, labels were saying, particularly here in Germany, they were saying, the digital space is great, but 98% of the music is still being sold physically. So, and there was this notion that this would never change. They were saying, and here we have a retail landscape. Basically, you can buy a CD from Hamburg to Garmisch-Partenkirchen or to Munich and at MediaMarkt everywhere. And I say, it's a great project, but, and it's good at the time. People will say, yeah, change sounds good, but, this will remain this kind of island where people buy their music and want to own it. I said, okay, but my job is to convince you that things may change. And, I did that for 3 years, and then Napster came calling. I'm sure, who is familiar with Napster? Can you give me a sign with the brand Napster? Okay, so I suppose that you're familiar with it because you know the illegal version of Napster, right? I don't want you to, I want you to get in jail or something, but I'm supposed you know, like the classic illegal download service, the file sharing platform, I should say. So, so I didn't go to that form of Napster. I joined actually the third reincarnation at the time. That was post the Bertelsmann acquisition. So at the time, there were a publicly listed company at NASDAQ. It was 2005. And we started with the streaming service in 2005. So that was 20 years ago. I'm an old man. And at the time, download was still struggling. And people were telling me what I told you a couple of minutes ago. They were saying, this will not work. And I basically jumped that phase and went already into streaming. And the same people, they told me, oh my God, so you're talking about a renting model. I said, yes. You're crazy, this will not work. But we started with the service and the numbers were really small. Napster actually still exists, numbers are still small, but that was a great experience for me because I could, on one hand, I could train myself when it comes to trying to convince people that, change can be dangerous, but can also bring opportunities. So I had to convince people, whether they were on the label side, on the artist side, on the management side. So that was a good exercise. I did that for 3 years, and then I went to Apple. That was in 2008, and basically iTunes was doing pretty good. So that was a good phase. Was trying to, but at the time, labels I would say were still relatively skeptical. So you could see this kind of development of people saying, as you remember from a couple of minutes ago, music, we sell it 98% physically. A couple of years later, they said, we still sell 80% physically. A couple of years later, they said, well, 60%, more than half. 50%, well, at least half of the music. Imagine, that's a lot. 45%, they were saying, almost half, and and I was like on the other side trying to talk about change. So why do I think that it's important, or how do I think I can kind of show a little bit of my experience? What kind of model am I using? What I'm using is this little model, which I call the Windstream paradigm. So what is this? Going back to the car question from the first slide. So why is he doing with? Why is he working with car things? So basically, imagine yourself sitting in a car, driving forward and looking out of the window. So this has basically 3 stages. There's stage number 1, which can be applied to people who are telling me this will never change and we always did it like that. Stage 1, which I, define as a stage where you are trapped in the rear view. So basically, when you're driving like that. So you're not looking in front, you're not looking to what can come, may come, or is already coming. You're locked in the rear mirror, and you say, We want to protect what has been and what has gone. That's stage number one. As you may imagine, not something I would recommend. Stage number two, the tunnel vision forward, which would be not driving like that, but only with a very limited view. So basically saying, we need to change for the sake of change. Just do change, and cut everything what has been. Also not really recommendable in my view. I try to, bring people and kind of being an advocate for stage number three, which is the balanced vision. So basically, talking about this kind of driving situation, you drive, you look forward. Primarily, you look to the opportunities, to things which can be changed or will be changed or are in the process of changing. But at the same time, you see the rear mirror. So at the same time, you keep one eye on the rear mirror, basically saying, okay, where did I do a mistake? What can I learn from things in the past? And this can also translate into how do you compose your teams, basically. Because when I joined, after Apple, I joined a label for the first time. So I was on the other side of the fence. I joined Universal Music, was their general manager for a couple of years, and then from 2018 up to last year, I was CEO of Sony Music in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And when that happened, people were saying, oh my God, that's this kind of Silicon Valley digital guy, and I'm the radio promoter, I'm the TV promoter. I will be axed right away. And I said, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying, and that's wrong. I'm giving you an invitation on, okay, let's acknowledge that things have changed. You work for radio, you work for TV, that's great. But do we agree on the fact that the impact of TV and the impact of radio has shrinked? It's much smaller than it was in the past. And at the same time, that means that you can have, if you had 10 resources on TV in 2006, you can't have 10 resources in 2025. But that doesn't mean that you need to fire all the people. You can, okay, for instance, I changed the TV promotion people, I turned them into audiovisual promotion people. What does that mean? Basically, that incorporates YouTube and all the creators who basically are doing a variation of the job they were familiar with, meaning TV and so forth. That's what I mean by intergenerational wisdom. Basically, that change doesn't mean to axe all people who maybe have been doing old jobs for a long time. That's not what I'm saying. Why do I think that this has an impact also on society and on other areas? When I'm talking about the technology sector, I think it's a very, very straightforward one. You can also speak about, for instance, we're in Germany, we can speak about the car industry, right? So we have companies like Volkswagen who used to earn billions with the turbo diesel engines, with the TDI engines, which was a great business. And at the same time, you had small units looking for alternative models and alternative drivetrains and alternative forms of mobility, which I kind of compare to the digital units that's within the label space. So when you are steered only by the question, who brings you more money, the smaller unit will never succeed. This will not happen. So in other words, going back to the car industry, this technology, the diesel technology, brought them so much money, and they said, the alternative drivetrains, it's just kind of a little unit which is not so interesting to us. It doesn't bring us any money. And then all of a sudden, the main area goes away or becomes way smaller, like the physical business in the music industry, and then you have a problem. Similar thing with healthcare, social movements at the same time. You need to be knowledgeable about, what did former social movements do? What were their way of communicating? And how can we marry these old ways with new ways? So, who is this young man? Of course, it's me, and I didn't put this up just to show you what kind of nice hair I used to have. It's just a little, some pictures who kind of highlight and display this professional journey and, and the things which did happen alongside me being a music fan and being a professional person. So see on the first picture I was, I think, 2 years old, so my music taste was rather limited at the time, I suppose. The second picture, it was really nice hair. So we talk about the late 70s, I think it was 78 or 79. I started to, enjoy music. We talk about radio and vinyl, and that's it. The next picture, me on our balcony in Frankfurt Goldstein. I was, I believe, 13 years old. So I had a pretty well-developed music taste at the time, meaning vinyl, vinyl, vinyl. In the middle of the Cold War area, or not in the middle, but in the later stage of the Cold War era, so pre-unification. The next picture, a little embarrassing. I tried to have some great braids, but they weren't that great. That was basically in the 90s, post-unification CD area. The next picture where I'm wearing a red shirt. It's not so visible, but you see a calendar behind me. So it's the year 2000. Then this picture was actually taken in the tobacco shop of my cousin in Calabria in southern Italy. And so 2000, I was a couple of years away from joining Musicload. And that was after the Napster catastrophe, so to speak. The next picture, I had already buried my dreams of becoming a professional footballer, but I was still trying hard on some occasions while being not talented enough and a little too skinny. But the ball I'm kicking there is the ball of the European Championships in 2004. So download was, I would say, growing. On the next picture, I'm wearing J.J. Okocha's shirt of his time when he went to play for Bolton Wanderers. So I'm from Frankfurt, and J.J. Okocha, the Nigerian player, is a legend at Eintracht Frankfurt. So I was following him, and that was around 2005, 2006. So download still really, really, really small, but growing at a small level. Then on the next picture, I'm wearing the dress of the German national team from 2014 when we became world champion. So that was the peak download era, and streaming growing. The next picture, when I'm wearing the glasses, that's where I was appointed CEO at Sony Music. So that was the time when people, social media exploded. So that was the time where Instagram was started playing a major role in developing streamings. The next picture is from 2024, when I was joining Spotify for an event, and at that stage it's like, okay, TikTok, big thing, Instagram still going, and at the same time AI. So everyone was talking about AI, and the way people talked about AI, and some people still do, is symbolic on how I think change should not be approached, in the sense that people were, on one hand, yes, it's the best thing in the world. On the other hand, people were scared. They would say, "Oh my God, did you listen? This AI Drake song, will Drake disappear because of that?" And I think, no, that's not, it's the wrong approach. I think that you should have a measured view between the dangers, but also the potentials. And no one talks about, by the way, about the fact that AI in music does not only mean replacing artists. It can mean that, but at the same time, when you work in management, when you work at the label, when you work at a radio station, when you work at a TV station, when you work for a YouTube network, it can be really, really helpful as well. The penultimate picture is me after I left Sony Music, so kind of refreshed, and the last picture is actually how I would like you to see change and to approach it and feel good about it. And last thing I'd like to tell you is that these 3 steps can be really helpful. So basically, look at the current status, and at the same time look in the rear mirror. Talking about mirrors, I think you understand what I mean by adjusting the mirrors, and at the same time, embrace change without being, without losing your critical ability, but at the same time being open for it. And hopefully, you will find a good way to embrace it and to find the sweet spot by adjusting your mirrors and being happy with it, and take the right decisions. Thank you very much.
Video or not? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing with us also such cute pictures of yourself. Unfortunately, the next panel has to be canceled because 2 of the politicians that were going to come could not come here, which is Michael Biel and Kerstin Richter-Kotowski. We're sorry for that, but we're going to have a little break and come back at 1 with Viva Con Agua meets Earth Percent, moderated by Gulsher Gabami. If I can have 2 minutes of your attention, I thought we could use this moment of connection before you go out and just sing something together. I want to teach you, if you want to, because I know many of you maybe have a good voice here or just like to sing. So I'm just going to propose a little rhythm, and we're going to have 4 voices, because I see 4 groups, and I cannot stop but do a little choir moment, okay? So you're going to sing this. Cha-cha, change, cha-cha, change, cha-cha, change. Or low. Cha-cha, change. Together. Cha-cha, change. Here. Cha-cha, change, cha-cha, change. And we're going to that. Cha-cha, change. A bit rounder. Cha-cha, change. What? One more. Cha-cha, change. And louder last time. Hold it. Change. Okay, see you at 1.